Hi, and welcome to John's Tarot. This is my Tuesday edition of John's Tarot podcast only. Today's podcast is going to be on the structure of the Awakening series, Threshold Map Integration and Fractal Initiation. The whole series was very interesting. After I finished it, I was reflecting on what I just done, and some very interesting things came to my awareness. And that's what today's podcast is going to be about. I want to do something a little different in this episode. I'm not going to introduce a new concept, a new stage, or a new experience. Instead, I want to look at the structure of what I've already put into the world. Not to elevate it, not to explain myself, but to answer a quiet question that some of you may already be sensing. Why does this series feel coherent, even when you don't listen in order? That question has less to do with insight and more to do with structure. Why structure matters in depth work. When people encounter depth experiences, awakening, individuation, initiation, psychological reorganization, what destabilizes them most is not intensity, it's lack of orientation. Ancient cultures understood this. They didn't prevent difficult experiences. They provided structure around them. I didn't set out to create anything ancient, but as the series unfolded, I noticed that the same structural patterns kept repeating. Eventually, I realized each episode contained three elements: a threshold, a map, and integration. Once I saw that, I made a conscious effort to honor it, both within individual episodes and across the series as a whole. The three structural elements, let me define these plainly. 1. Threshold. The threshold is the point of entry. It is the moment where someone recognizes something in me is shifting, something no longer fits, something is being asked of me. The threshold is not something I created for the listener. It already exists in them. In each episode, the threshold appears as a question, a tension, a lived experience, or a recognizable disturbance. The purpose of the threshold is not to push people forward, it is to help them recognize where they already are. 2. Map. The map comes next. This is where language, symbol, psychology, and lived experience provide orientation. Not answers, but bearings. The map says, others have been here. This has shape. You're not alone, and you're not lost. The map is intentionally light. It doesn't tell people what to do. It doesn't prescribe outcomes. It simply names the territory. In this series, the map draws from Jungian psychology, the fool's journey, individuation, myth, my lived experience, but always as description, not doctrine. 3. Integration. Integration is the most important part and the most often skipped. Integration is where the episode returns the listener to their actual life, their relationships, their responsibilities, their limits, their embodiment. Integration asks, how does this live in you now? What changes because you've seen this? What does it need to change? Every episode intentionally closes the loop. There is no escalation, no cliffhanger, no promise of transformation, just return. How does this structure exist in every episode? Once I noticed this pattern, I realized something important. You can enter this series anywhere. Someone can listen to one episode and still encounter a threshold, a map, and an invitation to integration. That's not accidental. It's what keeps the work from becoming linear, hierarchical, or gate-kept. No episode says, you must have heard the others. No episode says, you are behind. Each one stands alone and also reflects the whole. The series has a larger structure. What surprised me most was the realization that I had done the same thing within the entire series. The series itself has a threshold, the call, the disturbance, the awakening, the first 3 episodes. A map, the stages, the language, the patterns. Well, episodes 4 through 8. And integration, return, embodiment, living from the selves, 8 through 10. In other words, the same structure repeats at multiple levels. This is what I mean by fractal. Fractal initiation explained carefully. I want to be very clear about this term. By fractal initiation, I do not mean that this series initiates anyone, that listening produces awakening, that there is a hidden process at work. I mean something much simpler. A fractal is a pattern that repeats at different scales. In this work, each episode contains the whole. The whole series mirrors each episode. Meaning changes as the listener changes, not because the content changes, but because the listener does. No one is being moved forward. No one is being led anywhere. People encounter what they are ready to encounter at the scale they can hold. That's not initiation. That's orientation without pressure. Why this matters ethically. This structure does something important. It prevents dependency, hierarchy, authority creep, identity formation around insight. There is no next level. There is no completion badge. There is no moment where someone becomes something special. There is only recognition, orientation, and return. That's intentional. Why I'm naming this now? I'm talking about structure now because structure is what remains after insight settles, after death and rebirth, after living from the self. The responsible question is no longer what happened to me. It becomes, what did I do with what happened? This episode is part of that accounting. In closing, there's one thing I hope you can take from this. This series is not meant to move you. It's meant to meet you. You didn't need to finish it. You don't need to agree with it. You don't need to make it part of your identity. You're free to enter, pause, return, or leave. Freedom is not a flaw in the work. It is the work. I want to explain a little bit how I kind of figured this out. It was after the series was done, and I'm taking a walk, and I'm processing what I've just been through, because I was definitely affected by this work. So, if you've been following this series, you may have noticed the structure repeats. It's almost like a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And I don't mean that in a mystical way. I mean it in a structural way. The same basic pattern shows up at different scales. The first wheel, the whole series. At the largest level, the entire Awakening series follows a repeating cycle. Threshold, a call to disruption, a turning point, map, a framework, a way to make sense of what's happening, and integration, bringing it back into live life, behavior, and responsibility. That's the series as a whole. The second wheel, each episode. But then each episode also carries the same structure. Threshold, the central question or dilemma for that episode. Map, the teaching, the concept, the lens I'm offering. Integration, how it lands, what it changes, what it asks of us. So the episode is a smaller wheel inside the larger wheel. The third wheel, the tarot demonstration at the end of each episode. And then the inside, that when I demonstrate the tarot spread, the same sequence appears again. Threshold, I ask the question. I set intention. I name what I'm working with. The map, I lay the cards out and they become a symbolic map of the situation. And finally, integration, I interpret the reading and translate it into something usable. Some type of insight, responsibility, the next right action. Even my closing prayer follows that movement. The prayer is a form of threshold. I'm entering the reading consciously. The cards are the map, a symbolic picture of the issue. And the interpretation is integration. It turns symbol into lived understanding. So it's a repeating pattern. Threshold, map, integration. at the level of the series, the episode, and the tarot spread. That repetition isn't accidental. It's how deep learning works. The same pattern repeats until it becomes natural, until it becomes something you live, not something you only understand. But there is even one more level, a hidden wheel, the most important one, because this is where the work actually becomes real. The listener's inner process or personal arc. As you listen, you also move through thresholds. Something resonates or challenges me. The map, a new lens forms, and then integration. You live differently. It's kind of freaky, ain't it? Once I saw this, and I saw it in the episodes, I saw it in the complete work, in the structure of the complete work, I saw it in the tarot readings, and I saw the pattern repeating fractally. If you've ever seen a fractal, it's a picture, a mathematical image that repeats itself as you zoom in on it, and then it repeats itself as you zoom in on it. And that's how this work actually works, how it actually presents itself. So I'm going to ask the tarot. I'll do a little tarot reading with each episode. My ability to read tarot is a gift, an expression of divine love, and I'm here to share it with you in that same spirit. That's the threshold. So how will this fractal initiation of the series affect people? I think that's a good question. How will the fractal structure of this series affect people? That's a good way, and I'll throw some runes on this as well. How will the fractal structure of this series affect people? One more shuffle, and then I'll deal out 3 cards, and I'll throw out 3 runes, and we'll see. How will the fractal structure of this series affect people? Now, even I thought it was kind of interesting when I saw it. And my next episode, I saw something even more unique and even more important. So tune in next week to hear the next episode. Right now, I'm doing a little downtime. I'm just going to be producing podcasts once a week. Producing this series took a lot out of me, and there's got to be a recovery period. So that's why I'm just doing podcasts for the next month or two. We'll see if more videos kind of appear when I'm ready to do it. But I need to have a little downtime. So how will the fractal structure of this podcast affect people, or this work? How will the fractal structure of this work affect people? All right, let me cut the deck, and I'll deal the cards. First card is the 3 of Wands. Second card is the Fool. Third card is the Knight of Wands. Let me throw some runes on this too. Odin, Freya, please help guide this reading. How will the fractal structure of this work, this series, affect people? 3 of Wands, the Fool, and the Knight of Wands. My first rune is the rune of Pertho. That is a rune of games of chance and of the phoenix moving in. Let me finish throwing the runes. For the Fool, how will this fractal structure of this series affect people? The Fool, and this rune is Wunjo, and it's kind of a fruit-bearing tree. And has to do with the travail has ended. The shift has already occurred. And the Knight of Wands, the rune is Tiwaz, the warrior rune. I'll do a quick reading here. So the 3 of Wands, you see a guy standing there holding 3 wands, looking out. He's on a bluff overlooking the ocean, and he realizes that it's interesting. I have 3 wands there: threshold, map, integration. And he's looking at how this will affect him, and it perfectly defines what I've been talking about in this podcast. So that is exactly defining what the work is. And he's looking at how this will affect him. And the rune is called Pertho. And the Pertho it looks like a gaming cup set on its side. so that if you do this work and you take a look at it, you're taking a bit of a chance. You're rolling the dice, see what happens. But it's also the rune of the flight of the phoenix. So you're flying above your daily problems, your daily life. You're exiting your normal state of consciousness, and you're taking a look from above, down on your life, on what is happening to your life in relation to each episode, wherever you're at in the series. If you do the exercise, you're taking a bird's eye view of your life from that perspective. Well, interesting. And then the second card is the Fool. The Fool is somebody who is very naive. He's very idealistic. He goes on a journey. And many people who enter in on this journey will be exactly like that. They'll be exactly like the Fool, full of enthusiasm, ready to take on a new journey. And you see the Fool's about ready to step off a cliff, and there's a little white dog at his side that's warning him, be careful, watch your step. But I provide a map. Many times life is like that Fool's journey. We're all on the Fool's journey. And what I've done with this series is I provided a map. I am the little white dog telling you, be careful, watch your step, as I provide a map as you go through the different parts of this initiation, or the parts of the Fool's journey. The Fool is also, the beginning of the Fool's journey. The whole series mirrors the Fool's journey of the tarot, as well as initiation, as well as individuation. And then the rune Wunjo. And it's just saying that, if you made it this far, good for you. The travail is over. The difficult part of your journey is about to come to an end, and that there's been a shift. There will be a shift. That's how it's telling me. This is something you've been looking for. This is something to help get you better centered. And it's also a fruit tree, a fruit-bearing tree, and it's the fruit on the tree, in the rune Wunjo. So this is what if you've encountered this series, this is something you've been looking for, and it's going to help you. It's going to be a little fruit for you to feed you, to sustain you on your journey, on the Fool's journey. And then the Knight of Wands. So this is the card of new journeys. Your life you're beginning a new portion in your life. A new exciting journey of opportunity and possibility is the Knight of Wands. But it also warns you not to rush ahead and not to go too fast. That tends to be one of my faults. I want to rush ahead and get all excited and take on too much. It advises you to go on this new journey, to watch your step, be careful, plan out your steps, which I have already done for you. In the series, I planned out each step on the journey. And then the rune is Tiwaz. That is the warrior's rune. And that is somebody who's faced many life challenges and has come out successfully. But the rune also has to do with patience. Every warrior knows that the time to strike is won by patience. So you have to watch and be patient as you move through each step. So I am going to go ahead and wrap this up for this week. I hope you enjoyed John's Tarot for this week. Next week I'll start throwing in some sound effects and stuff. I just wanted to do a podcast and get something out there for you. Send me an email. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know if you've enjoyed the series. I'm going to put the series, I'm going to rearrange it. I'm not going to change anything about the series. It was I was in an archetypal field when the series came through me. It was kind of a extended spiritual experience. That's why I need a little downtime to reorganize myself. And that's what happened to me. That if you've worked through parts of this series, let me know what happened to you. Send me an email. My podcast email is john@johnstarot.net, and I'd love to hear from you. My webpage is, johnstarot.net. Take a look. Let me know what you think. I'm going to reorganize the webpage to put this in more of a usable format. The way it is up there right now is more of a format for like a blogging format, but I need to organize it into more of a book almost format. So I'll be working on that in the coming weeks. So as you're out there today, be careful, be cool, be kind, and remember, Find courage, have faith, and I will talk to you all next week. All right, bye-bye.